Mia Farrow finally talks about the day that changed everything after keeping quiet about it for decades. She went into Woody Allen's room in January 1992 and saw pictures that would shock her to the core. But that wasn't the worst thing they found. After that, she had a terrible nightmare full of lies, abuse claims, and family secrets she hasn't told anyone until now. She's finally ready to tell the terrible truth about the man she calls her biggest mistake in life at the age of 79. She was born in Los Angeles, California, on February 9th, 1945. Everybody in her family worked in Hollywood. She had a famous Australian father named John Farrow who directed movies and wrote books. In the Tarzan movies from the 1930s and 1940s, her mother, Maureen O'Sullivan, played Jane on screen. Mia was the third child in a family of 7. She grew up in Beverly Hills where there was a lot of wealth. Hollywood stars often came to her family's big, fancy house. Even her godparents were well-known. A well-known director named George Cukor and a powerful gossip writer named Luella Parsons. As a kid, Mia liked to play and act out. For tourists who came by her house, she liked putting on scary little shows with fake blood and toy knives. She was in a short movie called Unusual Occupations, filmed Tot Holiday when she was only 2 years old. This was a sign that she might become an actress someday. But not every part of her childhood was great. There were a lot of fights between her father and mother because he drank too much. Even though Mia was very young, these fights made her think a lot about family and relationships. Faith was also very important to her family. They lived a Hollywood lifestyle, but they were very religious and followed Roman Catholic rules. The kids in Mia's family went to Los Angeles Catholic schools. She learned strong morals and a sense of duty from her religious background. In later years, this made her want to help other people and adopt kids from different backgrounds. Something terrible took place when Mia was 9 years old. A lot of people got polio in Los Angeles in 1954, and she got it. She had to be quarantined in the hospital and stay there by herself for 3 weeks. Some of the places in her body that hurt a lot were her back, neck, and legs. She had to be put in an iron lung at one point to help her breathe. It was just as hard for her to be away from her folks as it was to be sick. The nurses were mean to her even though she was scared and confused. She was crying, and one nurse told her she was making things worse for everyone. The treatments were also bad, and Mia didn't like the hot packs they used. Afterward, she said that having polio made her feel like she had lost her youth. The world became much scary for her after that, and she no longer felt safe or kept. Mia was 13 years old when her family went through another terrible event. Her big brother Michael died in an airplane crash. Michael was in the Marine Corps Reserve and only 19 years old. The crash took place on October 28, 1958, not far from Pacoima, California. The family as a whole was very sad. Already having a hard time with drinking, her dad got even worse. This made her parents fight more violently with each other. Mia and her sister Prudence were in England at the time, going to a nun school. Mia was away from home when she heard Michael had died, which made her feel even more alone. Mia went back to her school in Surrey after Michael's funeral. Her family stayed in London for a while before moving to a house in Chelsea. Everyone was having a hard time, but Mia saw her parents fight more than ever. Mia moved to New York City with her mother after her father died in 1963. Things changed here. She started out as a model and then moved on to playing in plays. It was challenging. She tried out for roles and was turned down, but she didn't give up. This was her first small part as a child. It wasn't a big deal, but it showed her what was to come. She learned how to stay strong and keep trying from these hard starts. Soon, her hard work paid off, and she began to build her business. Mia tried out for the big part of Liesl Von Trapp in The Sound of Music in 1965. She didn't get the part. It was important at this time. There is still a screen test of her singing and acting that we can see today. It shows how talented she was at a young age. There was a lot of competition for the part because the music was going to be big. Mia didn't get the part, but she kept trying. Soon after, she got a part in Peyton Place, which changed everything. She missed The Sound of Music, but it was just another step on her path. From 1964 to 1966, Mia played Allison McKenzie on Peyton Place, which made her famous. The show was about a small town and the stories, relationships, and problems that happened there. Mia became well known for her part as Allison, a sweet but complicated young woman. A lot of people liked the show. It was one of the first big soap operas on TV, and every week millions of people watch it. People cared about Allison because of how Mia played her, which showed how skilled she was. But being well-known wasn't all fun. The news started to follow her around and paid a lot of attention to her marriage to Frank Sinatra. Her personal life took a lot of attention away from her work. Miss Mia quit Peyton Place after 2 years because Sinatra told her to in 1966. She went through a big change when she quit the show. She then turned her attention to movies, which led to the part that made her famous. Mia played the lead role in Roman Polanski's psychological horror film Rosemary's Baby in 1968. Rosemary Woodhouse was her role, a pregnant woman who slowly comes to terms with the fact that something bad is going on around her. It was a story about trust, fear, and the bad things people can do. The movie got a lot of good reviews and made over $30 million from ticket sales. Mia's acting was praised for how real it made Rosemary's fear and confusion feel. Roger Ebert even said that her work was great. This part turned Mia into a real movie star and changed how people thought about women in scary movies. There was more to Rosemary than just being a victim. She was a complex and believable person. It became one of the best horror movies ever, and in 2014, it was added to the Library of Congress because of how it changed culture. Mia became recognized because of Rosemary's Baby, but it also showed the world how talented and unique she was, starting a job with a lot of different and interesting roles. The one between Mia Farrow and Woody Allen is one of the most talked about and troubled in Hollywood history. Over the course of 10 years, she was in 13 of his movies, beginning with a sex comedy based on Midsummer Night's Dream in 1982. Fox played Ariel, a part that was supposed to go to Diane Keaton. The movie got mixed reviews, but it introduced Farrow to Allen's brand of comedy and began a long artistic partnership. In the next movie, Zelig, Farrow played Dr. Eudora Fletcher, a psychiatrist who helped Leonard Zelig, a guy who could fit in with any group. When it came out in 1983, the movie was a strange mix of fake news and fantasy. Farrow's calm and believable acting helped the story feel more real. Some critics praised how well she and Allen worked together on this one-of-a-kind idea. Then there was Broadway Danny Rose in 1984, where Farrow played Tina Vitale, the loud and rude lover of a gangster. The part was very different from anything she had ever done before because she wore dark sunglasses and spoke with a strong New York accent. She was nominated for a Golden Globe because of how well she played the part. Allen even told her that she was very brave to take on such a difficult job because it required her to change so much physically and emotionally. In 1985, she gave one of her most moving performances in The Purple Rose of Cairo. Farrow played Cecilia, a waitress who was having a hard time during the Great Depression and goes to the movies to escape. She was nominated for another Golden Globe for her role as a young girl who loses her innocence. Critics loved the movie, and many people think it's one of Allen's best. Farrow's acting was what made it so moving. Allen and Farrow had worked together on some of his most acclaimed movies before making Hannah and Her Sisters in 1986. Farrow played Hannah, a steady and loving woman whose life links all the other characters. Even though Farrow wasn't nominated for any awards, the movie was one of Allen's biggest hits and won several Academy Awards. The way Farrow played the part gave it a quiet power that could have been missed otherwise. It came out in 1987 and was called Radio Days. In it, Farrow played Sally White, a cigarette girl who wants to be a radio star. It was funny and cute to see how she went from having a squeaky voice and no one to being sure of herself. In late that same year, she was in September, a movie that was much darker and more personal. Farrow played Lane, a woman who was healing from a traumatic event and having a hard time dealing with her feelings in a small space. The part was intense, and it gave her a chance to go into more serious dramatic ground. The movie wasn't a big hit, but Farrow's acting stood out because it was so honest. In the 1988 movie Another Lady, Farrow played Hope, a troubled lady whose therapy sessions are heard by the main character. Even though she only had a small part, her acting was very important to the story and showed that she could make an impact even in a supporting role. When Crimes and Misdemeanors came out in 1989, Farrow had already been in a lot of Allen's movies. She played Hallie Reed, a documentary director who was having problems with her love life. Even though her part wasn't the main one, she added depth and nuance to a movie that was praised for how it looked at morals and relationships between people. In the 1990 movie Alice, Farrow played the lead role of a wealthy Manhattan housewife who goes on a magical trip to find herself. She was nominated for another Golden Globe for this part, and critics loved how she mixed being funny and being vulnerable. It was a part that let Farrow show both her funny and serious sides, showing once more how flexible she was. In the 1991 movie Shadows and Fog, Farrow played Ermi, a strange sword swallower who worked for a moving circus. The movie was a tribute to German expressionist film. It got mixed reviews, but Farrow's performance made the whole group come alive. Husbands and Wives, their last movie together, came out in 1992. Judy, played by Farrow, was a woman who was dealing with the end of her marriage. The movie felt raw, almost like a documentary, and Farrow's performance was real and full of feeling. Even though it was made during a rough time in her personal life, her work was praised by many. In these 13 movies, Farrow showed that she could play both comedic and serious roles, and she often changed her whole personality for each part. She was nominated for 3 Golden Globes for her roles in Broadway's Danny Rose, The Purple Rose of Cairo, and Alice. Although she didn't win any awards, her performances were memorable and made her an important part of some of Allen's most famous and well-reviewed movies. She married Frank Sinatra on July 19, 1966, when she was 21 years old. Sinatra was 50 years old, which is a huge 31-year age difference. They met in 1964 on the 20th Century Fox lot and quickly fell in love, even though they were very different. Sinatra was getting married for the 4th time, but Farrow was getting married for the first time. There were a lot of problems right after the big wedding in Las Vegas. Sinatra wanted her to stop acting so they could spend more time together. When she got a part in Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby in 1968, this became a big deal. He was so mad that he sent her divorce papers while she was shooting. They broke up because Farrow wouldn't quit the movie. She said she wasn't ready for such a complicated romance yet because she was young. They stayed close even after they split up in 1968. Farrow also said that they never really broke up personally. They stayed friends until Sinatra passed away in 1998. When Farrow was done with Sinatra, she married Andre Previn in 1970. Another big age difference was that she was 25 and he was 49. They got married in 1960 and had twin sons named Matthew and Sasha in 1970. In 1974, they had another son named Fletcher. Farrow also started taking in kids as her own. While she was still with Previn, she took Lark from Vietnam and Daisy from Korea in as her own. Things looked good in their family, but things went wrong when Farrow found out Previn was cheating on her. In 1979, they split up because of this. Later, Farrow said she felt bad about how the split affected her children, but she kept her mind on being a good mother. In 1979, the same year that Farrow lost her husband, she began dating director Woody Allen. One of the most talked about parts of her life would happen here. They were together for 12 years. During that time, Farrow was in 13 of Allen's movies. Working together on projects helped her career, but their personal life turned into a scandal in the end. It took a while for Farrow's family to grow. She became famous for lovingly adopting many kids and being a mother. As well as having her 3 biological boys, she adopted Lark and Daisy while she was married to Previn. She kept adopting even after she got divorced. She had Moses in 1980 and Dylan in 1985. Dylan later became a key part of her fight with Allen. In the 1990s, Farrow had adopted even more kids. Thaddeus was from India, and Quincy Min was from Vietnam. She accepted 14 kids in total, making her family big and varied. Even though she was dedicated to being a mother, she experienced sadness. 3 of her kids have died. Tam passed away in 2000, Lark in 2008, and Thaddeus in 2016. Even though these losses were terrible, Farrow kept strong for her family. She became an advocate for children's rights and used her voice to help kids around the world who were in danger. In January 1992, Mia Farrow's life took a terrible turn when she found out that her long-term partner, Woody Allen, was cheating on her with her adopted daughter, Soon E. Previn. The event was frightening and will never be forgotten. Mia found a stack of racy Polaroid photos of Soon E. when she went to Woody's place in New York. They started seeing each other while Soon E. was still living with Mia. She was 21 years old at the time. Not long after she met Woody, in 1977, Mia took in Soon E. as her own child. Discovering these pictures was a terrible betrayal that broke Mia's faith and the foundations of her family. Mia and Woody had been dating for over 10 years. They made a unique and difficult family while they were together. They had 3 kids together. Dylan and Moses were adopted, and Ronan, who was born with the name Satchel, was their own child. When the pictures were found, things really broke down. Mia later gave a very detailed account of how she felt, saying, "I was just shaking. I locked the door after taking my kid home." The lie wasn't just about Woody. It was also about Mia's love for and care for Soon-Yi. The pain was terrible and came on right away. The finding caused a huge amount of damage. The affair became very popular very quickly, and the media jumped on the tail. It wasn't just cheating that was in the news. They talked about morals, power, and staying loyal to your family. Mia talked to Soon-Yi about the pictures after she found them. The conversation was full of raw emotions, including tears, anger, and confusion. Mia soon couldn't figure out what was going on in her own home because of what Yi did and what Woody did. As Woody tried to explain himself, Mia said the things she said because she was mad at him for dating Soon-Yi. But people didn't forgive him, and his reputation took a big hit. But that wasn't the only thing that happened. In 1992, Woody Allen was accused of sexually abusing Dylan Farrow, his adopted daughter, who was 7 years old. Dylan told her mother, Mia Farrow, that Allen had sex with her at their home in Connecticut. This happened not long after Mia learned that Allen was seeing her adopted daughter, Soon-Yi Previn. As Mia tried to make sense of Dylan's shocking claim, while also being crushed by Allen's betrayal, things were a mess emotionally. After Dylan told her what happened, she wanted to write down what Dylan said about the claimed abuse. In the court case that followed, this video was one of the most important pieces of proof. The Connecticut State Police started to look into it. To find out what happened, they talked to Dylan and other family members. Even though the accusations were very serious, no charges were brought. A lawyer for the state said there wasn't enough proof to bring charges, but they also said they couldn't say for sure that abuse hadn't happened. As part of the study, doctors at Yale New Haven Hospital talked to Dylan to find out how she was feeling and thinking. A lot of people disagreed with what they found. Some experts said Dylan's words sounded like they were practiced or affected by Mia. Others saw gaps and thought Dylan might have been coached. On the other hand, some people thought Dylan's pain was real and that her feelings showed she had been through real trauma. Different points of view made the case even more difficult. Allen also asked for custody of Dylan and his other 2 kids, Moses and Satchel. The custody fight was emotional and watched by a lot of people. There was evidence and testimony from both sides, but the court decided in Mia's favor. She kept the kids for herself. Allen and Dylan lost their right to visit each other. The judge's decision showed that he or she had major concerns about Allen's actions. The fight went on longer. Allen and Mia blamed each other for wrongdoing for years, and the case stayed in the public eye. Dylan grew up, but she stuck to her story and insisted it was true. Mia Farrow's role in the HBO show Allen vs. Farrow was a big step in her long battle to tell her side of the story about Woody Allen and the abuse claims made against their daughter, Dylan Farrow. The film came out on February 21st, 2021, and was directed by Amy Ziering and Kirby Dick. It had 4 parts that went into great detail about what happened in 1992 when Dylan, who was only 7 years old at the time, accused Allen of abusing him. Making the movie was possible with the help of home videos, court records, police reports, and talks with family members and experts. Mia wasn't sure at first if she wanted to be in the show. That was hard for the artists, so they kept it a secret by calling it the Eliza Project while they were making it. It was important to them that Mia and Dylan could tell their story without it being changed by the media, which tended to make everything seem more important than it really was. The old footage from Mia's home videos was one of the most powerful parts of the program. Dylan was a child in the picture, telling her story soon after the claimed abuse. This was very moving and heartbreaking to watch because it showed what the family went through in an honest way. The show also looked at what happened after the accusations, like how Mia and Woody Allen fought in court over custody. Views of the public and news in the media were very important, and they often sided with Allen. Some people thought the story was unfair because he refused to be in the video. Others said that his absence gave Mia and Dylan the time and space they needed to talk about their feelings without being interrupted. The attention stayed on Mia and Dylan's point of view, showing their pain and strength no matter what. Being in this documentary made Mia Farrow feel a lot of different things. She talked about how her friendship with the Oscar-winning director went from being happy to making her feel bad in a rare interview. Farrow said she was over the moon happy when she thought back to the early days. But by the 1990s, everything had changed. Today, Farrow didn't hold back when she talked about how she felt about Allen. She said that being with him was the worst thing that had ever happened to her. She said, "I would take it all back if I could. Some people say, I wish I'd never met him. That's the worst thing I've ever done. Bring someone into the family who shouldn't have been there." In 2018, during an interview with Elle, Farrow talked about their friendship in more detail. She told them it wasn't as easy as they might have thought. She said it's not all black or white. If not, you'd wonder why you're even spending 10 minutes with that person, let alone 10 years. "I stopped caring about him a long time ago." Alan and Farrow are still not friendly with each other. Alan told The Hollywood Reporter in 2016 that they don't talk to each other. People asked him if he ever sees Farrow. He said that maybe she travels for UNICEF or something. After their public breakup and custody fight almost 30 years ago, Farrow said she still worries about what Alan might do, especially since she was in the HBO show. Alan, who has been married to Soon-Yi for 23 years and raised 2 girls with her, wasn't in the documentary. Instead, audiobook excerpts from his 2020 memoir were played. In the program, Farrow talked about her worries. She told people, "I'm just scared. He scares me. Someone who doesn't care about the truth will do anything. You should be afraid of people who will do anything. I'm afraid that he'll start attacking again after this video comes out." She also said that she thought Alan would do anything to protect himself. Farrow said that he would do anything to avoid the truth and the mess he caused. The pain and fear she has been carrying for years were very clear in the words she used. In the 2000s, Mia Farrow's work went through a lot of changes. She went from movies to TV and theater, showing that she could still do well in different parts. She came back to acting with a lot of energy after taking fewer acting jobs while she raised her kids. At this time, she had one of her first TV parts in the show Third Watch. From 2000 to 2003, she was in 5 episodes where she played a mother in a rough city who had to deal with tough problems. This part gave her a chance to show that she could handle sad, deep stories, even after being out of the news for a while. A Girl Thing, a TV show from 2001, was about love and friendship between women. Mia was in it. She was in movies with Kate Capshaw, Stockard Channing, and other well-known actors. The movie dealt with issues that are still important to people today, and Mia's part made the story more moving. Then, in 2002, she was the lead in The Secret Life of Zoe, a Lifetime movie. Mia's performance showed that she could bring depth and understanding to this type of modern family drama. The story was about a young girl who was having personal troubles. Mia also began doing theater at the same time. In 2002, she joined a moving play called The Exonerated. The play was about people who were put in jail without a good reason and the death sentence. It was clear from her part that she wanted to be in stories that were serious and had real value. She was in a play called Fran's Bed in 2003. It was an emotional look at love and death. It was clear from this play that Mia could still play strong parts and connect with people on stage. In 2000, Mia also began to focus on doing good things for other people. She became an ambassador for UNICEF, her fame to help kids in need all over the world. She went to parts of Africa and Asia that had been through war, poverty, and sickness. It was one of the most important trips she ever took because it showed her how much violence hurt so many people. In 2006, she went to Chad to see refugee camps where people from Darfur had gone to get safety. She listened to their stories and called attention to how much pain they were in. She spoke out against the violence and asked everyone to protect these weak people right away. Because of her work, the disaster got more attention from the media, and more people joined the fight to help Darfur. Mia did more than just talk about the issues. She joined efforts like Fund for Darfur to help raise money for projects that work for peace and for people who have been hurt by violence. She told people real-life stories to show how important and real these problems were. She worked hard, and groups that fight for human rights gave her awards for it. A lot of people were moved to help others by Mia's work with UNICEF. This shows that a famous person can use their words to make a difference. Her work to help people in Darfur became a big part of her action. She said things were getting worse when she went to Chad in 2006. Darfur was now part of Chad, and the refugees were no longer safe there either. In 2009, Mia went on a hunger strike to draw attention to this. There was a strike for several days, and the news covered it a lot. This helped her message get to more people. That's not all. She also worked with aid groups like Save Darfur Coalition and Aegis Trust to help people start over with their lives. Even with all of her activity, Mia was still able to keep her acting job. Even though it wasn't easy to raise 14 kids, she still did acting jobs that were important to her. She did less work in big movies and more work on TV and stage projects that were in line with her views. During interviews and public appearances, she also talked about problems facing people around the world, combining her acting job with her activism. She made sure that her job and her work with people in need helped each other.